It's a boys' club, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so from that point forward, the women have been oppressed. They're made to wear things over their face and head, and even up in the 60s and 70s. Me growing up, there was a great oppression on the women. But that's my belief. And, it doesn't matter. In Christianity or in any religion, none of us really know.
And so how did the government get involved? And what is it? Let me rephrase that. What is it that caught the government's attention?
Okay. So now this happens at Easter of 2012.
Let me ask another question. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Do you think there's any significance to this happening on Easter?
100%.
And what is that?
Well, you tell me what Easter means. And
It's the resurrection.
Yeah. Every year at Easter, either she comes back or something miraculous happens every year at Easter.
Every year since 2012?
Every year since then. Every year, including this year. And my son Ryan and his wife, and my grandson Teddy. Of course, my wife was a little bit scared, so she turned her head and ran in the house. But we all got to experience it this year at Easter. And exactly when I told them, at 8:30, it's going to appear. And we ran to the restaurant to eat, and I'm fussing, we got to be home. We got to be home by 8:30. And when we drove up in the yard, it was 8:30. When I opened the door, it appeared behind the car. And here it comes, this big glowing bluish-white ball of light through the forest going in and out of the trees. It was approaching us, and my wife freaked out and ran in the house. But it's always something like that miraculous on Easter. And it just feeds more into my understanding of the phenomena, the whole thing. She always comes in threes. Not always, but it's overwhelming. 3 is very meaningful in this. 3. And I thumbed it over and over, 3 orbs, together. They'll line up like a triangle. They'll fly through the sky in a triangle. I said, well, if I didn't, I'll give you a video of that. I have multiple videos of that. It's always showing that symbol of 3.
Now what is it that caught the government's attention?
So one of the things it did is in October of 2013, I get a call from a professor in Wilmington about, he's a religious scholar, very famous. She's written several books, and you'd probably know her if I said her name, Dr. Diana Pasulka. She lived an hour and a half from me, and she was given 2,000 reports by MUFON to investigate why 2,000 people reported angels, angelic beings that year. They were seeing these. Now, you only ever hear about the bad stuff. You only ever hear about somebody being on a table with multiple instruments and all this stuff, abduction, the bad. But overwhelmingly, 95% of all of it, people come away with angelic, their experience is heavenly. That's one of the things that you will never hear about. But October, I walk outside. I was a smoker then. I was watching TV with my wife. I paused the TV at 9:30. I said, I'm going to go out and smoke. So I walked out on the back patio. She comes out a few minutes later, and out in the back of our property, about 100 yards back in the dark, all of a sudden we see sparks come from the ground and go up in the air. And she said, what's up with that tree? I said, I don't know, but I see it. And suddenly it rained for 2 days. Ground was wet. This tree erupts into flames and goes shooting fire 13, 14 feet up in the air. Burnt the whole inside. It burnt from the inside out. Well, that got the attention of government. And, Hal was there. And now this other player from NASA wants to come see this tree. And he's codenames the Dragon. He runs all the launches for the for NASA. He is the head guy. He's National Reconnaissance Office. So that got me involved with the NRO. Next thing, I'm in Cape Canaveral, sitting with these guys, half a dozen of them. And that expands into a whole lot more. Now I'm dealing with two people from NASA. And this gets into medical study, stem cell research, and that happened a year later. And I'll tell you what got me there. Here's really what got the attention of the government. They heard about the tree. They all wanted to come see it, and they started. But I get a phone call in early 2013, Easter of 2013. I write about it, the whole experience in my book. I have an experience with the lady again. 2 weeks later, this journalist comes from Canada, calls me. I want to come see that burning tree. He'd heard about it. He's heading to Florida, so he stops by on the way. I live right along 95. Stays the night, goes to Florida, and he comes back. Comes again, wants to see more of the tree and get more story. So my kids are all home. It's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. He drives up the driveway. He pulls up, gets out with his camera. No clothes, no bags. He just gets out. He wants to go see this tree and film it before dark. He's out there at the tree. I'm with him. There's a Labrador, my dog. There's a Nellie, a full-grown female lab, laying there beside us. Everywhere I'd walk, she'd walk. We get back to the house. We stop just short of the door. And Nellie stops, and she's laying there, and Grant and I are talking, just glad to see one another. And I'm like, you want to stay the night? I get the kids to get your bags. And they were all out there. There was 6 or 8 more people outside. He said, yeah, I'd love that. So he's between me and the back door. The house is open, the back door is open, the windows, it was in May. It was May the 11th or May the 5th. It was only 2 weeks after Easter. Nellie stands up and starts toward the door when Grant turns. And when she walks by him, I see blood come out of her neck. And it shot way out like a stream of blood. And it's like I freaked out. And Grant saw it. And she sprayed blood all over his pants when she went by. And she ran in the back door, bleeding all over the floor. And I ran and tackled her and took her outside and laid her on the concrete. And I was going through my head, oh my God, and Grant's filming this from above, and all my kids are gathered around, and she's got a hole inside of her neck, across her jugular vein that long, and I could stick my finger in it that deep, and blood just shooting out with a heartbeat. And I had my hand on it, blood coming up through my fingers there. And I knew she was going to die. There were 30 minutes from a vet out in the country. Couldn't call an ambulance. I went through all this in my head. I thought, she's going to die. And everybody's freaked out. And I just looked up to the heavens. I said, Lord, help her. She went limp. And so I picked my hand up, and that hole was gone. Everybody saw it, disappeared perfectly, like nothing had happened. She stood up, waggled her tail, and walked away. He filmed it all. And it didn't take long, that word got out. Next thing, I get a call from somebody connected to CIA. And he says, what are you doing this week? What are you doing tomorrow? I said, this is 2014. I said, it's July 4th. It's Friday. The day's the 2nd. My kids are coming home from college. We're going to have a party, for the family. He said, well, I need you in D.C. I said, D.C.? He said, yeah, there's a young boy up there that's really sick. And they've tried everything they can to help him. And he's got to make a wish. In fact, Barack Obama gave him his make-a-wish. And we have all the photos of him shaking Barack Obama's hand. Michael Morrell, deputy director of CIA, put him in his book, wrote about him. So you can imagine this young boy is in the midst of all these power brokers in Washington. And his mom's a doctor. His grandpa's a cardiologist in New York. And they had spelled it as they were out of options. And so I agreed to go. He flew me up there, picked me up, took me to Arlington to where they had the 4th of July parades and all this flags and stuff. And I had no clue who I was meeting. I had no idea what I was doing. I had seen a dog miraculously get healed, and I didn't know what happened and how that happened. But these people thought at least we'd try some UFO guy that healed a dog to help this child. So I was terrified. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. I was praying silently while I'm sitting here in front of this little boy. He's got a feeding tube, and they're telling us he's not going to live another year. And I'm with his mom and dad and him. And I prayed all night, Lord, help me. What do I do? So I stayed to 1 o'clock that morning. And this child had mitochondrial DNA disease, meaning he could never eat. If he ate food, he threw it up profusely. He couldn't make nutrients from the food, so he was dying. And once they get the feeding tube, it's over. Usually they're dead right away. And I stayed to 1 o'clock in the morning, and it wasn't an audible voice. It was like this message came, this telepathic knowing. And it said, just hug him. So when I went to leave, I reached out and hugged him at 1 o'clock. His mom asked me to stay the night, and I said, no, I've got a hotel down. And the guy that brought me there, he's reading a book sitting in the back room, right? He stayed with me. And 1 o'clock in the morning, his mom calls me and says he's eating his second plate. And so
This was the next morning?
that night at 1 o'clock, I left. At 1:30, his mom called me and said he's eating 2 plates of food.
30 minutes later.
Yeah. And
What's this kid's name?
well, to be respectful of the family, I'd rather tell you that off camera, right? But his first name's Brandon.
Are you still in touch with him?
Yeah, he was at my house. I just spent last Memorial Day, Jim from the CIA, the deputy director, called me. Brandon's now 21 or 2 years old, and he's going off to exchange school overseas, and he'd never been away from home, right? And they wanted me to be with him before he left. And they told me, we know you're good for him to be around him. But let me tell you another one. Now he's 13. When he turns 13, he's having a bar mitzvah. First time I've ever been in a Jewish celebration, right? And it was the most amazing thing. This child is giving a speech up in this big church in New York City on 48th and Madison. We're in the basement, and everybody that's anybody, from the deputy director to the director of operations to the CIA and all in between, were there. A whole lot of important, 200 people at least. My son Ryan, and they're out dancing on the floor, and he's, and I'm thinking back, all these people at home that's giving me such a hard time. If I could only tell them what I'm experiencing right now with my family. This is just a moment for me. Suddenly, panic happened. The music quit, and the crowd come off the dance floor. And I'm still sitting at my table with one other person. Everybody's going out dancing. Now, my wife is sitting at the table behind me. She had gotten up, and she's with Debbie, Jim's wife. Very powerful people. The crowd got around me so much they're standing over me, and I feel a person grab me on the shoulders and pulled me through the crowd and said, you got to help him, you got to help him. Well, at their table, this elderly man had passed out forward and was totally pale white. I mean, he was ghost white. All these people trying to revive him, trying to wake him up, couldn't do anything. She dragged me through the crowd to him and said, you got to save him. And I put a hand on each shoulder, and when I did, he went, and he stood up, sat up, and the whole room saw it. And so you can imagine what that did. And that was way back in 2014. And it has only gotten more involved with government from there, from its senior service members.
Who was that man?
Who was
The man that you revived.
I knew who he was. He was the father-in-law of one of the people that, the guy that actually took me to D.C. the first time to help that little boy. We were all invited to the party, right, to his bar mitzvah, and it was his father-in-law that, whatever happened to him, he was totally unconscious there. And so that set me on a path that I had no clue I'd be going down. People, suddenly I've got hundreds saying, I'm sick, can you help me? And that's been the hardest thing for me, to try to help people, and because I never intended it to be that way. And I don't know that I can do anything. In fact, I don't do anything. It's something greater than I. And I think it's when I think of the divine world, it just comes. But, there's a whole lot in my book about different ones that have experienced this, from cancers gone to, this is a long list of people that have had blessings from this.
Could you introduce me to one that would be willing to be on the show?
I will try.
How many people have you saved?
Well, I don't know that I've saved anybody. I don't like to think like that. But there's
How many people have you been a part of this?
dozens of people every day. It's every day. I can show you. Now I just pray for them, or just if you know somebody that's sick, they might send me a photo now, and I just take the photo out and I hold it up to the heavens, and I ask the angels, God. I never pray to angels, I pray to God. And I ask for this help for this person, and I get these letters back. Doctor don't know, and it goes for dogs. I had 2 last month, dogs that one was 16 years old and total kidney failure. And the doctors are like, we don't know what happened. They're putting it in their journals trying to figure out what happened. He's back completely functional kidneys and normal.
Are there people out there talking about this?
Yeah. I've been private though, Shawn. I haven't shared this. In fact, I hate sharing this publicly because it's going to cause a whole lot more people to come, but it's still part of the story that tells the phenomenon with me, the experience with it. This is why I know it's from the divine world. It's not something with teeth and a ray gun coming here to get us.
Mm-hmm.
It's connected to our thoughts. It'll appear a lot when I ask it, and in front of me and you and others. Not every time, but pretty much on the time. Sometimes 50, 70 orbs will appear. Sometimes it's a little fire that'll appear right beside me, like a candle. I've seen it. I look over and, oh my God, it's right there. And then it'll shoot off over my head. And a lot of people have seen this. Rock stars, very big rock stars, without saying their names, have been to my house and have witnessed this up close and personal. Senior service members of the DIA, SES-19s, been to my house with their families and have experienced it. A lot. It's a lot of people that have witnessed it and seen it, still to this day.
How did the government get more involved?
Well, they wanted to study it, right? They wanted to see this for themselves. Because it's the most elusive thing in the world, to walk out and look up to the heavens and ask something to come, and all of a sudden here these lights pop on and they come flying by you. So there's a lot of them wanting to see that and study it. And
you allow them to do that?
Yeah. I allow anybody that is... I couldn't allow just anybody because I'd be overrun with people. But at my personal house, I've had the heads of the people from NASA, people from the DIA, the DOD, the CIA, And I had 3 from Washington there last week. 3 guys, diplomats that have experienced it with me. I was in Washington for 15 days last month, and I filmed orbs in the daytime and at night, and with a lot of important people, really important, in government and stuff. NSA.
Can you name any of these people by name?
I don't have permission, but Jim Semivan, everybody would research him. He's in my book. John Alexander. John was with me, 2015. He, in fact, the first chapter of my book, How I Met John, was about the Pope. I'm out by the burning tree, and this lady from Wake Forest University, a scientist, was doing this investigation of this tree. And she has a spirit box, she called it. I'd never heard of such a thing. It makes this noise, and so supposedly spirits come through it and talk. Well, she hands it to me. I'm leaning against the tree. And my wife and my niece and her assistant were there looking at me from about 10 feet away. And suddenly this voice comes through that box and said, "Chris, the Pope's in danger. You must help." And it kept saying that, and it kept saying that. And we recorded all this. We recorded 350 audio clips, 350, and multiple voices come in this thing. And they were saying my name, call me by name. And so I sent that message to the very guy that was involved with the child from the beginning. He was my contact, right? And he's like, "Oh my, you need to be here tomorrow, next day." And so in a couple of days, I was at his house. And when I walked in the door, there was John Alexander. And that's when I met him. And immediately we took a tour of Philadelphia, the Congress Hall. John got me into remote viewing, and I started reliving this thing, and I began to give details about this a couple of terrorists that wanted to explode a bomb on Congress Hall when the Pope was there. And they got the Secret Service involved, and they intercepted emails and calls and found this kid and arrested him. Sure did. And they shut the whole Ben Franklin Bridge down where people would come across. But that's just another notch, and that's the first chapter of my book about the Pope. And I've been investigated by them, by the Vatican.
You've been investigated by the Vatican?
Yeah.
How did that go?
Well, I was very sick at that time, 2017, with Crohn's. I'm not Crohn's, but rheumatoid. It come on me. And I was on all this chemotherapy and these biologics. And so my professor friend works with the Vatican, got permission to go in the Vatican archives. Well, my friend from NASA that I was working with from the NRO wanted to be a part, so he was allowed to go with her. There were 3 of them went to the archives, and when they were there, they were texting me and sending me pictures of angels coming out of orbs that are painted on the wall in the Vatican, and a message from the Pope that he said, "We know that they're angels and that they don't mean you no harm, but if you get too close to them, don't let them get too close, because their energy can cause damage to your body. And in fact, we know that St. Francis of Assisi had an orb get too close to him and zapped him, and he died 2 years later from his wounds." And she said, "We know for sure in today's lenses it was rheumatoid arthritis, the same thing you got." And so there's a lot of, I've got all the photos and stuff of that. You can see they had a ceremony in my honor. They put my picture in the Pope's picture at the entrance of the Vatican archives. They placed my picture between the books of Galileo and Copernicus in the archives to be there forever. So there's a whole lot that's going on from every angle throughout those years there.
Man, this is fascinating stuff.
Yeah. So now you know.
Why do you think you are the one?
I've been asked that a million times, and I don't like to think I'm the one or any of that. I'm just a simple guy that had a miraculous experience that continues to this day. And
With all the government, contact and studying and the Vatican, had anybody ever given you insight as to whether or not there are more human beings that have had similar experiences to you?
yeah, and they all relate them back to biblical times. As far as anybody now, I haven't heard, but there probably are. But they always use, Saint Francis or these different people throughout the Bible that had these experiences with orbs. And, the reason NASA wanted to go to be a part of that, getting in the archives, they wanted to study levitating saints. How come it is a person can take off and fly to the village next door, It really happens. People levitate. So there's more to this world than we got blinders on. We're blinded. And, yeah, but we're awakening now.
Yeah, I personally believe that we are the ones that put the limitations on ourselves.
Exactly.
Everything may be possible.
Well, I think a lot of those writings that got into this more detailed early on were deemed dangerous knowledge, so that it was removed from us understanding all of this stuff. It's kind of like that was priestly stuff.
Where do you think you were for the hours that you disappeared during the incident in 2007?
Well, I can tell you I had no clue until 2008 when MUFON came and did the Discovery Show. They actually sent a guy from a Harvard-trained psychiatrist that does hypnosis, and he hypnotized me first to say we're removing this block, and then we're going to come back next week and find out what happened. So he did the first one, and immediately I could think about it and not pass out or have an excruciating headache. So what he did worked. And then my wife and kids started for the next, it was about 2 weeks before they came. They were startled because when I'd go to bed, which always went pretty early, they'd be up till late. I'd be yelling out in my sleep and screaming and talking, and they were in there filming me with cell phones and iPads while I'm doing this, saying stuff, weird stuff, like seeing beings and on Mars and all kinds of weird stuff. So eventually I began to remember some of what happened, not all, but what I can tell you, the 4 hours while I was gone was a virtual tour. I was inside a bubble, something that was solid that I could stand on, but I couldn't see the walls, but I could touch them. But I could see everything in every direction. And there were always 3 figures behind me that were shadowy, and they were narrating what I was seeing. And I saw North America from way up high. I saw the whole United States. And then I was taken to Egypt, and I saw the pyramids and this Hathor's temple. I saw that, the Sphinx facing to the east. And then the lady comes back the following year after all this. This was in 2013 is when I really got that message from her, because that's when I was asked by the Pentagon, by 2 Air Force generals, to put it in writing what she told me. And I did. And this was on request from NASA, a friend at NASA. So he come and got it and hand-delivered it to these generals. And she told me that, she said that when the star of Regulus She called it a red star. When you look at it, it looks blue. But she said when Regulus is red on the horizon, in front of the gaze of the Sphinx, before daylight. So in other words, when it's sitting right on top of the horizon, before the sun comes up, that moment would mark a change in humanity's knowledge. And she showed me other things. War, us bombing Iran, us bombing Syria. And in them days, none of that had happened. So I put all that on this piece of paper. And now I've had so many write me back, oh my God, you see they just bombed Iran or Iran just bombed us. You know, you were right the whole time. And I did that in 2012. And so what they did was I gave them the date of 2026 because they took that celestial event and ran it through these machines that showed that exact alignment will happen in 2026 at Easter.
What will happen?
The star will, the alignment she told me about, that the star of Regulus would be on the horizon in front of the Sphinx. At that moment, there'd be a new knowledge. Well, I had no idea if this was even possible, you know. But these astronomers run it through the machines, and it comes out that that star is going to come up on the horizon in Easter of 2026. And from that point forward, they started remote viewing the state. Government did. And now you hear it all over TV. 2026, that's the big date. 2027, that year, something's going to happen. Armageddon, you hear it all over. You know, you hear it on TV. If you study, like I've heard even, well, I won't say names, but
Please do.
well, you know Lou Elizondo, right? Lou's mentioned that date. A lot of people have.
Easter 2026.
Well, the year 2026. I gave him the specific time. And it was with Robert Grant that I told him about this alignment and all. And then he's like, oh my God. He's been looking for this ruby, this little ruby you have to find and place it between the paws of the Sphinx to make this event that he knows is going to happen in 2026. I said, Robert, it's not a ruby, it's the star of Regulus. He looks like, he's like, oh my God, that's the king star. So what's going to happen, I don't know. But I think it's possible that's the return of
Christ.
Yeah. Or the lady and the whole heavenly host living with us, Jesus. That's the first time I've ever said that in my life, publicly. You're the first. And a million people's asked me this. So I think it's entirely possible that, because she told me that when the suffering of man becomes too great, that they're going to stop it and they're going to snuff out the darkness. That's why the military and the government all want to know about this, because they know it's real. They know this lady has been seen a million times. And when she comes, she's always warning of some big catastrophe. In the Native American world, they call her the White Buffalo Calf Lady. And she would come warning about, you know, some tribe coming to kill everybody or some big event. And it's in every culture that way. But I'm as, you know, I wish I knew more.
What else do you know?
I just, I think we're living in the worst possible times right now, that if we don't make some changes, there's going to be some major disasters about to happen. And it's man-made. It's not solar flare. It's not any of that. It's a dark force. Because she told me, well, I'll tell you what she told me. This is what I put in writing, part of it. She said, there are people in power. I put this in writing in 2012. She said, there are people in power. And I'm not going to say where she focused my thoughts on that, but they're script in the book of Revelation to bring about Armageddon and the end of the world. They're doing it intentionally, and that's what she told me. And that's the very thing the main meat of the whole message I sent to these generals. So it makes sense, right?
Who is they?
I don't know who they are. I think they're Satanists. I think they're people that worship the dark force, that don't care for humanity and human life. And in fact, they're the total opposite of, they worship the devil. I don't know if there is a devil. I think it's a very dark force that is living full of dark entities that feed on you parasitically, like they'd be non-physical. They shape shift. They take your mind over. They make you do crazy things. They deceive you, make you kill somebody, go crazy. Where the angelic world are the physical beings. They can come in here and light. These beings are made of light. The dark force is a parasitic race. And whoever's aligned with that is, according to the mother, the lady, is script in the book of Revelation. They don't want it to happen.
Why did they want it to happen?
I think it's the dark force. I think that they want to snuff out God. They don't want us to have God in our heart. Why do you think they did evolution? That's the biggest, dumbest thing I ever heard in my life, that every living thing come from a mud puddle. And it can't happen. It's just not possible. It's a laugh. It's a joke.
You know what I find interesting is from the very beginning, when you saw the being that your family, and initially you, if I remember correctly, thought was just the medication,
Right?
you had some type of an intuition from the very get-go that this was a guardian angel
Yep.
of some type.
Yep.
And it has progressed.
I knew I had one when I was 10. I just knew it. I knew something saved me because the doctor's like, man, you shouldn't have lived through this. If I showed you the hole in my back and the lead in front of me right here, you'd be like, how did this happen? Is that close to my spinal column? I'm leaning over a bit. Is that close to the back of my head and directly in line with my heart? And I knew the doctor told me, you're the luckiest guy in the world. And all I could think then was it wasn't luck. It was something protecting me. In fact, in my regression, 2008, if you heard the regression, they said, we were with you when you were 10 years old, and we'll be with you right on.
You know what else I find interesting? You are the only one, to my knowledge, that I've spoken to on this subject, on the UFO subject, that believes in Jesus Christ.
I do wholeheartedly. More today than I ever did.
That openly talks about it.
Yeah. More today than I ever. And that's been a problem of censorship and kind of put me on the back burner and keeping me at bay publicly.
Yeah.
It really has.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised one bit.
But I'd never told this message about what we just talked about until now, because now I think it's the time to tell it. 12 years, 13 years, I've kept it secret. Only my family knew.
What do you think that day is going to look like? If you thought you had to,
It says in Micah, in that glorious and beautiful day, he's coming back to save us all.
do you look forward to that day?
Absolutely.
Do you have any fear about that
I
day?
fear my children and these crazy people that just can't get a hold of their whatever they're doing. I'm 60, almost 63 years old. I've been through 11 or 12 presidents. And people my age and your age, but especially my age, everything's happening now is completely not normal. And we all see the writing on the wall. We all see the players, some of these players. There's a lot behind the scene that we, especially, they're hidden, but we all see something ain't right. And there's got to be a cleansing. And the only thing that can change people is God. And the phenomenon can change you inside. But there ain't going to be no change of humanity without having some spiritual thing come in and change us from the inside out there. And that's what's coming. And it's nothing nobody can do about it. They can squeal and squirm and try to make it look negative and ugly all they want. But it's not going to stop what's coming, according to her. And in the book of Revelation, in the very last chapter, it says, when the armies surround Israel on all four sides, that he's coming back to fight the battle and rid the world of evil. And then there'll be a time of peace, 1,000 years. And that's what the lady told me. Same thing. I said a lot,
Thank you for sharing that.
a whole lot. 18 years I've never told this, or the 17 and a half years.
How does it feel to get it out?
Right. Right. I'll get a lot of blowback from this, I promise you. I just hope the world that has been told it's the devil can wake the heck up and see that a little bit of heaven's coming here to help us.
Would you be willing to come back on this show?
I would love to, yes, sir. I'd be honored.
I could go deeper, but I think this is a good part to end this interview. But with that being said, I would love to get you back because I have a lot more questions, but I know it's been a rough day.
Just say the word and I'll be here.
Thank you, Chris.
I promise.
You know, there's been a lot of speculation on if UFOs are strictly some type of spiritual entity, or if they are nuts and bolts, or if it's both.
There's a possibility there's both, but I haven't seen the other side. All these years' experience has been with the phenomenon, I call it, is a spiritual thing. It's like magic. They appear out of nowhere. In fact, Tim Burchett made a quote, and I saved it. They believe that the interdimensional world would be the angels. And so if there might be some star cruiser coming from some planet some far away and stopping over to resupply and get some gas or something, right? But I can tell you there's not a reason in this world an alien would come down to the river where I'm crying out, God, help me. Why would he even care? Why would they want to help me? Why would they help all these other people, even animals? Because they have compassion for us and love.
I know I already asked this, but I do want to ask it again. And I just want to hear what you personally think. I mean, of 2007 to 24, we're talking almost what 17 years now.
Yeah.
Why you? What is it that you believe that God saw in you in that moment of time? Lots of people look up.
I think that the phenomenon or God or whoever knew that I'm the kind of person that would never back down. Never, ever. Look at Paul in the Bible. Look at all the apostles, every one of them. They knew what they knew, and they went to death for it. They were boiled in oil and tortured and crucified and hung upside down and dismembered because they knew, without a doubt. Paul, on the road to Damascus, it says, and a flash of light flashed around him and blinded him. It was an orb, the ball of light. And that's exactly what comes out of the sky and interacts or comes into my house or around us. It's just the light. And it answers to prayer.
How do you pray?
I pray to the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, the Holy Trinity.
How? Do you ask? Do you just talk to it? Is it
It's
ceremonial?
No, it's a thought. I don't have to say a word. I can think it and they come. They're connected to our thoughts 100%. Yours too. They know your thoughts. They know all of us. In fact, I believe everybody has guardian angels, probably at least two. And I've been quoted saying there's 15 around me at all times. My kids are like, how do you know that, Dad? Because I constantly see there's about 15 of them that'll appear, and sometimes they do it all at once. So I think you have them. All you got to do is acknowledge it.
I know I have them.
You do.
I've talked about it several times on this show and given very, very detailed examples. And the next time I'll share those with you.
I want to hear that. I really do.
But, well, Chris, what a man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you're doing. And thank you for being here. And God bless you, brother.
I appreciate you, Shawn, so much.
Appreciate you too. We'll see you soon. God bless.
Thank you.
No matter where you're